All right, we are live. It is time for another Higher Self Expo interview ahead of our event. A week from today, which is Saturday, January 23rd, we start at 10 a.m. Eastern. And I'm super happy because today I have with me Dean Price. And Dean, hello, how are you?
Hi, Zane. I'm great.
It's wonderful to have you. We're excited about this. I love having astrologers at these events because I love that perspective. It's a perspective that I don't know nearly as well. And so to bring in the expertise, and you have many years of expertise on all of this. So I would love it if you could give just a brief little introduction of yourself for our audience.
Okay. I've been an astrologer and a numerologist since the 70s. And what I kind of specialize in is astrology and healing. I'm also a polarity therapist, which is based on astrology. So uh, I've come up with a system of correspondences of how the planets correspond to the chakras in the body, and that we can use an astrology chart to see where the energy blocks are, and they correspond to the chakras. So we can do polarity energy work based on the astrology chart. And so I'll be talking a little bit about how that set of correspondences works and how we can do healing or manifestation or reprogramming based on those correspondences and some hands-on energy work.
Very good. Yeah, so for people who aren't aware, we have a theme for this particular Higher Self Expo, and it's the 0 point of non-judgment. So I'm excited about that too, because you have your own very kind of awesome perspective of the 0 point of non-judgment. Do you need to, should we show a slide now, or can you go over that without the slide? Because I can hit it.
Yeah, let's show the first slide, which shows the correspondences between the planets and the chakras. And then we'll have a second slide where I'll show the different dimensions, including the 0 point where that shows.
Okay, great. So we're seeing that image on our screens now.
Okay, so this shows that the planets correspond to the chakras in the same exact order that they are in the heavens. So what's going to turn out to be the 0 point is up at the crown chakra, and we'll get to that in a minute. But if you go from 0, which is nothingness, it's the chakra that points up to the heavens, and the space, which is nothingness. But then when you go down the front, and I'm using the microcosmic orbit here, not just the central channel, you'll see that the sun corresponds to the third eye, where we actually have our visual center. So you see light from the sun there. And then you go down to the throat chakra, corresponding to Mercury, which is the first planet around the sun, which is communication and words. You go down one more chakra, you get to the heart, the next planet being Venus. So you have feelings like love or bliss, happiness, or grief, sadness, etc. And then you just keep going through the chakras and planets. The next planet is the Earth with the moon. That's the solar plexus. And you just basically you go down the front and up the back. It completes the microcosmic orbit. And so that we can look at a person's astrology chart, see where there's stress and possible problems, and do some energy healing based on that. So,
right. Okay.
So if we'd like to go to the next level of correspondences, I could show the next image.
Yeah, go for it.
Unless you have a question about this particular
part of it. Go ahead.
Okay. So now can you see a different image?
Yep, sure can.
And this one points the opposite direction, so it might be a little confusing, but just the way I did it. So the whole thing is a big zero. You can see it's in the context of space. But what you've got here is, if you start at the top, and you notice it says 0 and 12. So the 0 point is the crown chakra. And here I used a different keyword. I said spirit, because this is the crown chakra. It's our higher self. It's our connection to spirit. And it's symbolized by a 0. It's symbolized as nothingness or space. And you could also see the correspondence with that we have a halo on top of our head.
Sure.
And so that's a 0. That literally is the 0 point in this system here. And as you go out from, or you look at in the middle of space, let's say, the first thing you see is the sun, which is in the middle of that space. And it's symbolized by this circle to the right of it with a dot in the middle of it. That's the symbol of the sun. And it's also one of the most powerful symbols in manifestation technique.
Okay.
That we use using these various sacred geometry images. And so you go from the nothingness at the crown chakra, the 0 point, to the dots. And that's what we experience in our eyes. We have rods and cones, which record dots of light, the different colors and the different gradients of light versus dark. And that's what forms the images in our head, is really a bunch of dots. And so that symbolizes the number, is symbolized by the number 1, or the dot. And then when you go down another chakra and another planet, you get to Mercury. You've added a second point. And
right.
So going between the first point and the second point, back and forth, you get the idea of vibration. So I used the symbol of the yin yang, which is a symbol like a sine wave, a symbol of vibration,
right?
Symbol of yin and yang, duality. And so sound, which is vibration, or words, are the principle of just like opposites attract, where vibration is the beginning of attracting things into manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a dimension of nothingness, we've got a dimension of light, and now we've got a dimension of vibration or sound. And as we continue around the circle, we add more dimensions.
Right.
So we're basically seeing that we're living in a multidimensional universe. Each of our chakras corresponds to one of those dimensions, and each of the planets in the same order corresponds to those dimensions. So as you add a third point, you get to Venus. Venus, everyone knows, is the goddess of love, so it makes sense. And you've got 3 points creating a triangle, which is like a window. All of a sudden, you can feel things that are outside of yourself. Mm-hmm. You like this person, don't like that person,
right?
Love that person. That's feelings like they're coming in through a window.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, I don't want you to keep going because, looks like you've muted. But we got to save this for the expo, and so I'm excited about that. Let's see here. I'm going to switch back. Can we hear you?
Yep. I'm talking. Can you hear me?
Yep, sure can. So for a second there, your volume went away, and I've actually removed the image from the screen for everybody because really, I'm excited about what you're going to be presenting at the expo. We don't want to give it all away now, right? Like we got to.
No, I couldn't do it in 15 minutes anyway.
Right. So super excited about that. And so at this point, you and I had this incredible conversation a couple of months ago. We were introduced by a mutual friend, and I've been wanting you to share this story, and you probably have. You probably shared this story, in interviews or online at some point, right? Your, should I call it a stroke story or?
I'm not sure what to call it. Um,
I can still see you. You're fine.
oh, okay. Somehow I disappeared. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I'll just tell you what happened. And when I'm talking to people that have a hard time with some of the concepts that I might say, I just say, well, think of it like I just had a stroke, okay? Oh, okay, now I get it.
Right. Yes.
But I didn't even know what to call it for a long time. It was like a near-death experience. And I would say the initial experience, and it happened about 2 years ago in 2018, towards the end of the year, like August. But anyway, the initial experience was that I was in 5D, or I was in whatever 5D means, and that means different things to different people.
Right.
So just again, that's another word. I felt like I went to heaven. Let's put it that way. I didn't fall on the ground and physically die that I remember, but I also lost short-term memory, so I didn't remember much, and I still have issues with short-term memory. But I was in. It was like I was in another dimension, like heaven or something like that, and I had no idea how to navigate 3D. So some of the first things where I noticed something was different was I realized I didn't know how to turn on a light. I didn't know how to tie my shoes. Had no idea, okay, where are my shoes? Where are my keys? I think I need those to drive my car, but I don't know how to,
how to drive
do
a car.
anything in particular. I remember I was hungry and okay, how do I prepare food? I don't know. So it was as if I had died and been reborn as a baby inside the same body. And so I had to learn, and it was horrible. I mean, I was like, can you imagine not knowing how to do the simplest thing?
Right.
And not having a mommy to take care of you?
Right. So you were able to communicate though, right?
The whatever happened, it did not affect the part of my brain that communicates. So I could communicate just as well as I can right now, and which actually made it a little challenging for people to believe when I would tell them, there's something wrong here and I need help. Would you how do I turn on my car? How do I do this?
Right.
And every single technological thing, like my computer, my phone, was a total mystery to me. And so it's kind of like being an alien who didn't live in a three-dimensional planet. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I later, maybe 3 or 4 months later, I was at an event, and a woman that I knew came up to me in a scooter. The first time I'd seen her, sorry about that, in a scooter. Apparently, she had some kind of a problem because she couldn't walk anymore.
Oh, okay.
And I was, I told her what had happened to me, and what my experience was. And this was still pretty new, like 2 months later. I think I had progressed from being a newborn to being about a 2-year-old at that point. I was figuring like a year, well, I don't know, maybe I was an 8-year-old, maybe maybe a year every week I was progressing in my development.
Yeah.
And I explained to her that I didn't know how to do anything technological or anything like that. She goes, "Oh, I think you had a stroke. That's what I had." So she said, "Oh, I had all those same exact
symptoms,
difficulties." Yeah,
Yeah.
I still am having trouble coming up with words.
Yeah.
and um, and but in general, my mind is better than ever in many, many ways.
Yeah, there was like a little bit of an upgrade almost, wasn't there?
Yeah, I felt like it was an upgrade. Yeah, and my astrology is better than ever, and I've been doing it 40 some years. And I'm still feel more like I am experiencing things from another dimension and using this guy's body named Dean. And I'm not sure if I'm him or not. You know what I mean? But there's advantages in like having friends, and so
Right. Okay. Now there was another part of this story that you told me where you had like some sort of sword.
Yeah. So okay, this was the very first part of this experience. So I was at an event of mine. I produce expos,
right,
called New Earth Expo, and I was in one in Sacramento when this first happened, and I had been helping somebody who was putting on a workshop for several hours. Like I was on stage with them for 6 hours, and they were doing interdimensional healing and running, angelic energy through their, their body and mine. Apparently, I was like the ground or something, because it was like we were creating some kind of microcosmic circuit and healing people of various problems. But I think it sort of erased everything in the process. So that's why I don't call it a stroke, really, to people, is because you really have. I was there, and I didn't experience having a stroke exactly. I just discovered that I had erased a large part of my brain, but I was in another dimension, so I was actually in a state of superconscious rather than feeling like I had a problem at first. And at the end of an expo, what normally happens is some of the vendors haven't paid me yet.
Right.
And so a series of conversations happen, like, okay, here's my payment for my booth, and so I went over after this workshop, and it was the end of the expo, and I went over to somebody's booth, and I said, oh, can you pay for your booth now? I mean, and the first woman says, oh, I only made $775, so I can't pay you anything. And I'm like, really? That doesn't compute. You know what I mean?
Right.
And all of a sudden I discovered I had Archangel Michael's sword in my hand. And even though this was a very good friend of mine, or was before that, I just like raised my sword and like sitting down. I mean, I didn't hurt her.
Right.
I just cut her off. I just cut the cord.
Right.
It was like I became totally like no nonsense. Like, okay, you're not, I don't care what your baloney is that you're trying to tell me right now is, but I have to pay, $5,000 to the hotel tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is I'm collecting it from you. And so that's not okay. Bam, you're never going to be in one of my shows again. And that person made their virtually entire living at my show, because I was doing like 30 shows a year, and they were in every one of them. And now they are not in anymore. And so I just took the sword. Michael is like that. I don't know if you know Archangel Michael very well, but he's no nonsense. He's a warrior. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Almost all pictures of Michael have his sword going into a demon, you know what I mean, and stomping on them. So that's the way I became like that. And then I went to the next person, and this person was in a total other dimension. Some of the people are psychics and healers, and this person was doing foot massage, and so they were kind of in another blissful dimension, you might say, and I said the same thing, and they just looked at me and apparently could not speak English anymore, and so again the sword comes down, and I just said, okay, that's it. This is ridiculous. I'm collecting, my $5,000 to give to the hotel, and everybody is stiffing me. You know what I mean? So, I discovered I had Archangel Michael's sword in my hand. I was in another dimension. It was like 5D or 12D or whatever, and I became a totally different personality.
Yeah.
So
That's
I'm learning how to be normal again somewhat.
Well, but I bet you still retain some of that you experienced. You realize that, hey, it could be okay to be a little bit more no nonsense in my life, right?
Exactly, because that was actually one of my character flaws before, was I was too nice,
Mm-hmm.
and I let people walk all over me, and that guy wasn't there anymore.
Right.
So,
That's great. Wow. Okay. I just love that story. And I mean, you and I talked about that for like an hour or something, or 2 hours, because there were so many different things that you had to kind of like rediscover about the world and yourself, coming from that childhood, that baby like perspective, right? Are there any other ones that you can remember right now?
Well, it felt to me like I was reborn instantaneously as a baby in this body, and I was like, God, why don't I get a new body? That's not really fair. You have to be a baby in an adult middle-aged body. You know what I mean? It's not really right. And so I was very emotional. I was kind of raging against my situation.
Oh, wow.
Because first of all, I have a business to run.
Right.
I have 30 expos to put on. Like, I had another one 2 weeks later in Carlsbad to put on. And I had no clue how to use my computer, or I could answer a phone call, but all the other things you do with the phone, I didn't know how to do this. Everything mystified me. And so I showed up at my Carlsbad show 2 weeks later because I had already sold booths for it, and I had a guy who was setting up the pipe and drape for the backdrops for the shows.
Yeah.
And he was, I said, Alvaro, you're going to have to run this whole show. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
The miracle I even got here. And so, I had to have other people run my business for like 3 months. I didn't know how to use my computer. It's kind of like a miracle, because I'm fine. I never ran out of money, or never had to sleep on the street or anything.
Right.
So everything was taken care of. So I developed a lot of faith, but even though the experience was very difficult, because a lot of people, if they were my friends, they were very understanding, and they'd helped me. With making food or teaching me how to do things again. But other people who were not so nice would like say things. Like, I remember one situation where a woman said, I was talking to somebody, and the woman comes over and she goes, don't talk to Dean, he's crazy. Did I tell you that story before?
I don't remember, but yeah.
I flew into a rage.
Oh.
Because when you're in that situation, you need all the friends you can get.
Right.
And I don't think I was crazy. I was just really in a higher dimension, but didn't know how to be in a lower dimension.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I didn't experience myself as crazy, just relearn. Any more than a baby is crazy.
Right. Right. Crazy baby that doesn't know how to turn on a light. What's wrong with that thing?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm not crazy. I'm talking to my friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I may be sounding, maybe they think I'm crazy. Just telling the story, you might think I'm crazy.
Right.
That's why I tell people, oh, it's like a stroke. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sum it up. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah, But then I found other people were telling me, because I put on metaphysical events with psychics and healers, things like that. Everybody was telling me what was going on with me, and so some people would say, "Oh, here's what happened. Those evil people in your show, they attacked you. They said you were. It was like a psychic attack."
Right.
And maybe it was, and they sent reptilians up into your brain, and they erased it, and their control, and so I was under some kind of reptile control for a while. So I won't tell you all the theories,
Right.
but that sounded plausible. So I actually had to banish 10 to 20% of my regular exhibitors that couldn't come back anymore because they fell to Archangel Michael's sword in one way or the other. But they deserve to.
Right. 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 Yeah.
They really totally deserve to. Not everybody in this business, and the healing arts, psychic, metaphysical business that I'm in, and you are too.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody in that world is doing something positive and helping you. Some of them are like vampires sucking your blood. I mean, I hate to tell you, but I had no trouble seeing the difference anymore.
Oh yeah.
I knew exactly who my friends were,
Right.
and I knew who needed to, get the cord cut, and I just would cut them immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
why bother, right? You've got Archangel's sword, so you don't have to worry about it anymore.
you just cut it. You don't have a conversation for very long. It's like, 2 sentences and you know what to do.
Right. And that's another word actually for self-care. Some people think self-care is about, giving yourself a break and having going to the spa or something like that. No. Self-care can be cutting off the people that are giving you trouble in your life and holding you down, like holding you down to lower vibrations. So by removing them from your life, you have an opportunity to ascend and to raise your vibrations. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's beautiful. All right. Yeah. So before we go, we have on the screen right now this web address, which is astrologyhoroscopetoday.com. If people go to that, what's going to happen?
Right now, I'm offering people that are listening a free 15-minute astrology reading, or it could be healing work like I described, or manifestation work. I had to re-manifest my entire life, so I learned some good techniques. So I'm giving everybody a free 15 minutes. All you do is go to that website, astrologyhoroscopetoday.com. There's a video if you want to watch it. You don't have to. You can just click on my calendar, make an appointment, and I'll give you a free session.
That's amazing. Like, yeah, everybody watching this should go on there and do that. I'm sure it's absolutely fantastic. I want you to give me one too. So
I'd be happy to, Zane.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah. All right, Dean. Well, it's absolutely a pleasure. Thanks for expanding our little interview there and telling us a little bit more about your transformation into a different dimension.
I call it a near-death experience.
A near-death experience, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's a pleasure. You're very entertaining, and we really look forward to having you at the expo in a week.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it as well.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Yep. See you soon.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.